2 years ago, India passed the DPDP Act, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. And for 2 years, almost nothing happened. No rules, no enforcement, no real compliance deadline, just a law sitting on paper. Then on November 14th, 2025, that changed. The government notified the DPDP rules 2025. And suddenly, a law that was mostly principles turned into something with actual teeth, deadlines, mechanisms, and penalties that are now enforceable. So, the question every business, every compliance officer, every founder should be asking right now is simple: what actually changed between the act and the rules? What was always there and what's brand new? In the next few minutes, we're going to break that down clearly. No legal jargon, no fluff, just what's different and what you need to do about it. Let's get into it. Let's set the scene properly. The DPDP Act was enacted in August 2023. It told India and the world that personal data would now be protected under a rights-based law. Consent, penalties, extraterritorial reach, all of it was there on paper. But a law without rules is like a contract without the fine print. You know the intent, but not the mechanics. So for 2 years, MeitY ran public consultations in Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru, Kolkata, and more, collecting nearly 7,000 inputs from startups, industry bodies, and citizens. That process culminated on November 14th, 2025, the day the DPDP rules were finally notified in the Gazette of India. And here's the part businesses need to internalize. This isn't a slow rollout with no urgency. There's now a real staggered enforcement timeline running all the way to 2027. The clock has started. In the next few slides, we'll go section by section, act versus rules, so you know exactly where the goalposts moved. Let's be fair to the act, it did real work. It gave Indians enforceable rights over their personal data for the first time, backed by penalties that can go up to 250 crore. It reached beyond India's borders, applying to any foreign company processing Indian users' data. It defined consent as something that has to be free, specific, and informed. And it envisioned a data protection board to handle grievances and enforcement. But notice the pattern in all four of these. Rights, yes. Penalties, yes. But no format for notices, no procedure for breach reporting, no criteria for who counts as a significant data fiduciary, and no board that actually existed yet. The act was the constitution. It needed a rule book. And for 2 years, that rule book simply didn't exist, which meant, practically speaking, very little was actually enforceable. That's exactly the gap the 2025 rules were built to close, and that's what we're covering next. Here's the clearest example of what changed. The Act said consent has to be free, specific, informed, unconditional, and unambiguous. Good principles. But how does a company actually prove that in an audit? The Act didn't say. The rules answer that directly. Rule 3 requires a standalone privacy notice, not buried in 15 pages of terms and conditions, that itemizes exactly what data is being collected, why, and gives a direct working link to withdraw consent or file a complaint. Rule 4 goes further and formalizes an entire new category of entity: consent managers. These are registered intermediaries vetted by the Data Protection Board, who sit between you and every company holding your data, letting you manage all your consents from one place. That's the shift in one sentence. The Act said, get proper consent. The rule said, here's the exact form it has to take, and here's who's allowed to manage it for you. That's the difference between a principle and a compliance requirement. Two more places where the rules turned vague obligations into hard deadlines. First, data breaches. The Act said fiduciaries must protect personal data and handle breaches responsibly. The rules put a number on it: 72 hours to notify the Data Protection Board once a breach is discovered. That's not a suggestion. That's a clock that starts the moment you find out something's gone wrong, and it means every organization now needs an actual incident response protocol ready to go, not just a policy document sitting in a drawer. Second, children's data. The Act said companies need verifiable parental consent before processing a child's personal data. But verifiable by what method? The rules finally define that. Specific mechanisms fiduciaries can use to actually confirm parental identity and consent, instead of just taking a checkbox on faith. Together, these two changes mean the difference between we have a privacy policy and we can prove on demand that we followed the process. That distinction is exactly what regulators will be testing for. The Act mentioned significant data fiduciaries as a category, the larger organizations, or those handling especially sensitive or high volume data that would face stricter rules. But it left the criteria and the obligations for later. The rules deliver both. If your organization gets classified as a significant data fiduciary, 4 new obligations kick in. You need annual data protection impact assessments, a formal repeated evaluation of how your data processing affects individual privacy. You need independent audits on a regular cycle with real documentation. You need to appoint a data protection officer based in India, a named, accountable individual, not just a policy line. And notably, you need to assess your automated decision making systems for algorithmic fairness, which is a first for Indian data law. This is the tier where compliance stops being a checklist and starts being a governance function. If you're a mid to large business handling significant volumes of personal data, this slide is the one to bookmark. The Act promised a data protection board, a body to receive complaints, oversee breach handling, and enforce penalties. But for 2 years, that board existed only as a concept in the text of the law. There was no address, no members, no one to actually call. That changed with the November 2025 notification. The Data Protection Board of India has now been formally constituted based in the National Capital Region with 4 members appointed. Why does this matter practically? Because enforcement needs an enforcer. A 250 crore rupee penalty clause is meaningless if there's no functioning body to investigate a complaint and impose it. Now there is. Complaints can be filed, breaches can be escalated, and the board has the structure to actually act. This is arguably the single most important operational change between the Act and the rules. The difference between a law that threatens consequences and a law that can actually deliver them. Here's the part that should create urgency, not just awareness. The government notified 3 key dates for enforcement: November 14th, 2025, the day the rules were notified and the board came into existence. November 14th, 2026, a second phase of obligations comes into force. And May 14th, 2027, 18 months from notification, when the substantive provisions of both the Act and the rules come fully into force across the board. 18 months sounds like a long runway, and in some ways it is. That's deliberately built in so organizations can adjust systems, appoint DPOs, register as consent managers, and build breach response protocols without scrambling. But 18 months is also not a long time to redesign your consent flows, your breach playbook, your vendor contracts, and your data retention policies, especially if you haven't started. The businesses that treat this as a 2027 problem are the ones who will be scrambling in early 2027. The ones who start now will just be compliant. So, what's actually changed between the Act and the rules? In short, everything that used to be a principle is now a procedure. Consent has a format, breaches have a clock, significant data fiduciaries have named obligations, and the board that used to exist only on paper is now a real functioning authority. That's exactly why simply reading the bare text of the rules isn't enough for most organizations. Knowing that Rule 3 requires itemized notices is different from actually redesigning your consent architecture. Knowing the 72-hour breach window exists is different from having a tested incident response plan ready to execute it. That gap between knowing the law and being operationally ready for it is exactly what our certificate course on DPDP Act at ILMS is built to close. It's a practitioner-led program that walks you through consent architecture, breach protocols, SDF audit readiness, and board procedure. So your organization isn't just aware of the rules, it's actually built to withstand them. If today's breakdown made you realize how much operational work sits behind these rules, that course is your next step. Links on screen. We'll see you there.